Hi guys, Ian Horne here with Inside Performance Baseball. I'm going to answer the question why hip and shoulder separation is important for the baseball swing. So I'm going to start with an analogy. If I was going to try to jump as high as I could, I wouldn't jump like this. What I want to do is create a stretch and then a shortening cycle to push into the ground, create some elastic energy, and propel myself up. Well, the same sort of principle applies when I'm taking a swing. When my foot comes down, I'm going to want to separate my lower body from my upper body, so allow my hips to rotate first, keeping my upper body still. And what this does is it creates a stretch in your oblique muscles, which run from ribs 5 through 12 and attach down on the pelvis. And by doing that, basically, if you imagine it as a slingshot, I'm pulling the slingshot back, and then as I swing through, my torso is going to catch up to my hips. And that's what happens when the obliques release and release all that energy. And that's going to create more power and more efficiency. And it's also going to give me one more advantage. The other advantage is if I'm I can start my swing later if I start with my hips going like this, because I haven't committed to the pitch yet. Whereas if I go all as one unit, as soon as I'm going to have to start earlier, and as soon as I go, I'm not going to be able to hold up as easily as if I start with my hips. So the next question becomes, well, how do we see if somebody has this ability? How can I incorporate this into my swing? And what are some drills that I can do to work on it? So the first thing that I'm going to start with any athlete is doing an on-base U pelvic rotation test to see if they can do this. So to do the test, and I'm going to do it on biofeedback here. So I've got K motion, so it's going to give me a ding when I get to the correct position. So what I tell the athlete is, get into an athletic posture and now move your hips, but keep your upper body still. So there you just rotate their hips, side. Now there's two things that you're going to see if somebody can't do this. You'll see the upper body go with the lower body and creating that kind of a block swing if it was going to be a swing, or you'll see them wag the tail of the dog, which basically is all lateral movement like this. Those are the two flaws. So if somebody can't do this, in order to fix the problem, the first thing that we're going to want to do is fix the body. We want to give them the ability to rotate their hips independently of the upper body. Because if they can't do it in an athletic posture without a bat, they're not going to be able to do it in their swing. So then we have to determine whether the reason they can't do it is a mobility problem, which is the freedom of motion to be able to do it, or a stability problem, which means they don't have control of that motion or they haven't learned how to do it yet. So the way to test this is you can put your shoulders on the person and see if that motion improves. And if it improves, that means it's a stability problem. If it doesn't improve, it's most likely a mobility restriction. So for a mobility restriction, I'm not going to touch on it in this video, but you're going to want to work on hip mobility and thoracic spine mobility. Now, if it's stability problem, what I like to do is I like to get a dowel. So if I imagine this is a dowel, I'm going to push the dowel down, and that's going to give me some extra stability, and I can work on rotating with that dowel down. Once the person can do it with the dowel down, then I'm going to get them to get back into their athletic posture, and they can work on doing it like they did in the test. And once they've mastered that, then they can go to their swing where they get their heel strike down, and they can just keep this back here, keep the bat back, and just work on initiating that movement with the hips. And you can use the biofeedback drill to do that. Now, once they have the ability to do that in their heel strike or their position where their foot's come down, then I'm going to start incorporating some drills. And I've taken these drills from Driveline. And the first one is the 45-degree drill. So I'm going to line up at a 45-degree angle. And then I'm going to separate. I'm going to keep my hips here and bring my upper body back. And then swing. And as I swing, when I make contact with the ball, I should have no degrees of hip and shoulder separation. So that idea is that as the heel comes down, I stretch, and then I'm going to fire my torso by contracting those oblique muscles and get it back to no separation, and that's going to create that elastic slingshot that I was talking about earlier and transfer the energy from the lower body into the upper body and then onto the arm, into the bat, and into the ball, and hopefully over the fence. So that's a hip 45 drill. The next drill that I'm going to have somebody do is the crossover drill. So by crossing them over, they should have loaded properly. So when you load, you're going to want to get to 20 to 40 degrees of counter rotation. That's rotation away from the pitcher. And so you're in this position here, your hip and shoulder separation should be 0. So they should be in line. And then as I stride, they're going to stay in line. And then when I land, I'm going to start to separate. So to do this drill, as I go into my swing, I want to keep my chest over the, like pointed back at the catcher and kind of over the plate. So I'm going to step in, keep my torso back, separate my hip, and then go through my swing. And then the last drill is kind of similar to the hip 45 drill, but it's more of a dynamic drill, so you're going to actually walk into it. So you're going to keep your hips facing out at 45, and then keeping that, you're going to swing through just like you did on the hip 45 drill. Try these. I hope this helps you get your hip and shoulder separation.